All right, you white motherfuckers, all eyes on me. This is the I Refuse podcast. Before I left to go to DC for World Pride, I realized that it had been a few days since I did a Surviving Diddy series. You know, I'm covering the trial, and every episode, if you're new over here, every episode is inspired by the details that's come out during the course of the trial. Where I left you guys was, if you've been following on the YouTube channel, where all the trial coverage is happening. We left off with former employees of a security company that were connected to the video footage from the Intercontinental Hotel. You know, where the 2016, 2018 incident happened, where Diddy jumped on Cassie and pulled her down, all while wearing nothing but a towel and some slides. So since then, day 16, the first witness that they called for the day was a forensic expert with a special expertise in video forensics, hired by the prosecution to analyze and discuss his findings. And something about a black screen, and you know, it's one of those things that at first you're like, what does this really have to do with anything? You know, the science, while the science is fascinating, what implication are you trying to get to from this person's testimony? Still very kind of unclear about that, because you know, whether the type of the camera or the footage or the data, which is, it jumps from frame to frame, at the end of the day, he still attacked her. And it was also during the 2 days that I arrived to the one thing that I was telling you guys about was, you know, what does the abuse or the domestic violence or the moody flare-ups, the throwing things, and at women and employees, what role does that play into satisfying some of these charges? Coercion. And the prime example, or the prime witness that is the bridge between all the abuse that other women have dealt with or been on the receiving end of Diddy, and the court case, is Cassie, in a roundabout way. Because as Cassie is, during the tenure of their relationship, the coercion is Cassie in a position to where she, or a woman is in a position where she has to keep this person happy, or there will be problems. There will be problems. People will be financially cut off. And, this is after they've been isolated and alienated from other people. This is after they've, in a way, been like bought into this lifestyle. And to me, that's regardless of whether or not a woman or a person expects it or looks forward to it. We've all heard that thing of bait and switch. But another interesting thing that's happened to where this may cause the trial to die, put a pin into that. But I remember in earlier videos or earlier episodes of the Surviving Diddy series on the podcast, I would talk about this thing that happens where it's like from one person called to the stand to the next, you're just not quite sure, like, if this is the smoking gun per se. Because there are two perceptions or two conclusions that people have been tussling online about. The perception that this is a setup or a ploy, or people are kind of making this shit up as they go along, or that people, and when I say people, like the folks that they've called to the stand so far, or the other perception or conclusion is, well, how is this, human trafficking? What does this have to do with RICO and all this other stuff? Even after I went down the list a couple of episodes ago about things that would satisfy or fall under the RICO, and there was one person that got on the stand starting on day 16, and then, the testimony continued into day 17. And that person was Brianna Broadbent, who is the best friend of Cassie. So she gets up there, and when she is questioned by the prosecution, she goes through the year that her and Cassie met, how they met, which was, I believe, before Diddy entered the picture. There was mention of a photo shoot and a clothing line idea they were trying to get off the ground. Brianna was the graphic designer. Cassie was the other part of the situation. And then it goes into, now, before I go on, so the reason why she was called to the stand, this Brianna person, comes directly out of a situation that was detailed in Cassie's original filing almost 2 years ago, where she lays out a balcony incident where Diddy allegedly dangled a friend of hers over a balcony. So during the course of day 16, when Brianna is on the stand and the prosecution is asking her questions, they go through the balcony incident and understand that Brianna is pretty much rather detailed on the stand. You know, she called Cassie after she read the filing, you know, after the filing was released and everybody saw it, to let her know that she got some of the details. Um, some of the dates initially were different than what was, and some of the details as to who was on the receiving end was different. So we get to that point. So keep in mind that the story goes that the balcony incident happened on September 25th of 2016. It goes that, you know, Brianna was normally stayed at Cassie's place. Um, Sometime in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, she claimed that Diddy was banging on the door and that she told her girlfriend at the time to hide in the bathroom because she knew what was going to happen, that something was probably going to happen, and that Diddy came charging at her. And then that's when she says she was dangled over the balcony. So at this point in the trial, though, Diddy has a different lawyer, Nicole Westmoreland, do the cross, is representing him, and she does the cross. Well. So when Nicole Westmoreland does the cross, things start to unravel with Brianna. So when we get to the balcony incident, and you know Nicole Westmoreland's doing her cross, she's like, "Well, isn't it rather interesting or rather odd that you would say this, but in one of your earlier statements that's on file, you were actually on the balcony looking at the view." And you know, as Nicole's asking Brianna these questions, you know, Brianna's answer is, "I can't agree with that. I can't agree with that." Now, keep in mind, the initial story was that this incident happened on the 26th. Well, Nicole Westmoreland goes through the timeline, documented and proven timeline, that on the 25th of September in 2016, Diddy was on tour in New Jersey on the Bad Boy reunion tour. And I went to the DC date, which was when was that? Yeah, I think around that time, probably after that. So anyway, September 25th, 2016, Diddy was in Jersey doing his Bad Boy reunion tour. 26, him and Cassie were attending a Boys and Girls Club ceremony. From the 24th to the 29th, they were staying at the Trump Hotel the entire time. Nicole Westmoreland looked over at Brianna and said, "Now, you think it's possible for a person to be in two different places at the same time?" Now, keep in mind, right, that at this point in the moment in the courtroom, they were already able to poke holes in the theory that Diddy was the problem in her, not having a career and controlling her career. She wasn't allowed to do anything, and that he was forcing her to take drugs. By Brianna's own words. So it was revealed that pretty much from the inception of their friendship, the arrangement always included narcotics and, for the most part, sleepovers before Diddy even entered the picture. And you want to do this clothing line, you do the photos, you do the designs, and you were convinced by Brianna that it was not possible in a market competing with Beyonce and Rihanna. It wasn't Diddy that was telling her that. So it was at this point that I realized, this is very much giving BS. And if that wasn't enough, guess who used to be Brianna's lawyer? Tyrone Blackburn. The same Tyrone Blackburn that was representing Lil Rod and was representing one of those yacht Swede stewards or something, steward girls. But Brianna had to fire him because Tyrone Blackburn was sending Diddy too many demand letters. Now, look, I know a lot of people out here want to get on the bandwagon and talk about you shouldn't victim shame, you couldn't victim shame. But people lie. And one thing I know is like, because, Lady Gaga, who has herself been a victim of abuse and sexual assault, has come out and said on one of the late night shows, I believe it was it Jimmy Kimmel? Years ago said that when you've been abused and you've been violated and raped and so on and so forth, you remember every detail of that day. Now, it wasn't like Brianna was skipping around and, changing the details as she went along. It's just not possible for a person to be in Jersey and Miami at the same time, for a person to be in New York and Miami at the same time. Be at Trump Hotel and Miami at the same time, or Florida at the same time. So, with that in the history prior to Diddy even entering the picture, it's just not looking too good. And then come to find out that Tyrone Blackburn used to be your lawyer. And Brianna could not, like, she was moving, booking, hauling ass out of that courtroom after she was finished with that. And as if it hadn't gotten even more unserious. Again, my opinions are my own. They called Jane Doe next on day 17. It was Daphne Joy. So Daphne Joy used to date Curtis Jackson. Daphne Joy. I've seen Daphne Joy. Like of all people that you were between Curtis Jackson and Diddy. Not at the I don't think at the same time, but like wow. Like really? But she went up on the stand and from her testimony we were able to get somewhat of a timeline that she gives me the impression that she was attracted to the lifestyle and all that other stuff. Because within less than 2 years, you went from flying to a particular place where Diddy was. Diddy, you were on a you were on a boat or at a party, allegedly with Diddy. You are you're going on trips with Diddy. There's a butler. It's private. You're being served and everything, and being taken care of. Um, you're having an apartment paid for. You agree to be in each other's phones under secret names. Um, and there are other women in the picture. Now, again, I was minding my African American business when the consensus online was that Daphne Joy was essentially jealous of Cassie and was jealous of Young Miami. Like once you had that kind of conversation with Diddy about not wanting to take part in she called them hotel nights, the freak offs. And his response was to the effect of, well, you can stay in the apartment for 2 or 3 more months and then that'll be that. Then the conversation was different, right? So there was another conversation you had with this man about doing an OnlyFans page because your friend was making good money and you want to do it. He was like, hold off on that. And then, you didn't want to do the hotel nights or hotel days thing again. It sounds like another event. Um, you were on and off with Diddy, and that was that. I don't know, like it's just it's just very flimsy with some of the folks this week. Um, or sorry, last week, week 4. It's just not. They just were not landing for me. Nicole Westmoreland herself, a survivor of abuse and SA. Um, Very smart move for Diddy to make this woman his defense attorney. Um, because there's one thing I know they don't play when it comes to being flimsy and messing around with in that kind of arena with, especially when you are sitting across from a person that actually survived it. So when it comes to the vigorous nodding that Diddy was doing, it came across to the prosecution. They perceived that he was nodding uh, somewhat aggressively while looking at the people in the stand, which they fear, with the jurors taking notes and everything, they fear was a tactic, a coercion, a tactic. It's just the kind of stuff you would see in a courtroom. When you're trying to intimidate a witness. It's already abundantly clear at this point in the trial that some of the women that have took the stand against him are understandably in fear. I mean, you just don't know what this dude might do next. And I still stand 10 toes down for my estimation the previous week about the lady that had the meltdown of the crash out in the monogram jacket during the trial. I was like, see, that was him. That's him pulling stunts and stuff. Like when you have money and access, you can make anything happen. You can, especially as desperate as times are these days, people will cause a scene for a 2-piece and a biscuit. And at the end of the day, if you are standing in alignment with the allegations and the themes and the concepts, which is from this associated with this guy, that you are being forced, that you're being coerced, you're being intimidated. It kind of takes the wind out of those sails when you take narcotics or you take pills on your own free will. And if you have a timeline that predates this man of taking drugs with friends and stuff, and you exercise this free will to try to start some businesses and stuff, and then turn around and claim that you couldn't have a career because this man said so or something like that. Yeah, I do understand that they're going to call all of that out on the mat during the trial. Just saying. Like, I'm not, for me, like from week to week, um, I was on the bandwagon with a lot of people saying that Cassie was a very traumatized victim. I'm not ever on the bandwagon that this was all a scheme that her husband, pushed her into to get this money. I will never get on that bandwagon. But the defense team right now is definitely doing the work. And Diddy is getting his money's worth. And I'm still 10 toes down with the assertion that he will get pardoned if he does get convicted. Just saying, if he does get convicted, that's going to be the conclusion. But that was day 16, day 17 of the Diddy trial. Fendi, like the bag. This is the after.